C Solutions, our core business is of course Office 365. We can help organizations with migrating to the cloud, both technical, functionally. We can help with adopting Office 365, SharePoint, of course, both on-prem as in the cloud. And of course, as Microsoft is pushing really hard on Microsoft Teams, we also help organizations with adopting Microsoft Teams and making governance plans, for example. And of course, the reason why we all joined today, Omnia. Omnia, of course. What is Omnia? Omnia is also a document management solution, quality management solution, but it also is an intranet. As you can see, it is one of the top players of the world. Clearbox has mentioned Omnia, I think, for about 4 or 5 years in a row to one of the best internet solutions as well. It has a lot of personalization, good design, of course, and why we have this webinar today, because Omnia has also a rich document management solution and a quality management solution. Why did we partner up with Omnia, you might ask? Because we were used to creating document management solutions in SharePoint, Office 365, of course. But the more customers we talked about document solutions, the more they asked us, why don't you have an out-of-the-box solution on document management? That's why we joined with Omnia. Besides the fact Omnia is based on Microsoft SharePoint based, and of course Office 365 technology, which is our core business. It also has a fast deploy time and is a really easy to use product for the end users. That was my introduction. I will now hand over the floor to Anders, who will talk about the document solution of Omnia. Good luck.
Thank you, Simon. Can you just tell me when you can see my screen, please?
Yeah, I see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar, Simon, and all the colleagues in C Solutions. Looking forward now then to be talking about document management in a Microsoft environment. So we will be talking today about document management based on SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, and Omnia. And we will be doing that from 4 different perspectives: solution owner, administrator, author, and end user. So before we get into the solution scenarios, I would just like to start with a short glimpse of something that we call the information model. So this model we use to build information architecture. So in a document management solution, we recommend that you start off with creating a document plan or document strategy that can be based on this model. As you can see, the model has 2 dimensions. So one dimension is regarding the need for a controlled lifecycle. So all documents with a need for a controlled lifecycle will be sort of moving to the right. And if no need for a controlled lifecycle, to the left. On the other axis here, you can see that we have a target group, so wider target group upwards and limited target group downwards. So let's do a couple of examples here. So, I mean, it would of course be impossible to use this model on sort of a document by document basis, but instead we can say that we can use it on document types. So as you can see here, I mean, if we start bottom left here, a document that would be me just taking notes at a meeting, that will probably have a very limited target group, perhaps just myself, and my employer, my organization wouldn't have any requirements regarding how that document is handled. But if we move to the other end, top right, we find the environmental policy, or let's say any corporate policy. In that case, we have a wider target group. We want that to be available for all employees. And we probably also have some requirements regarding how those documents should be handled over their life cycle. So when we have used this model, and when we have had a look at different document types, we have then built the foundation for a solution. We have built the foundation for a document management strategy. So when we have done the first analysis here, you can see that we can create categories of document types. So on the left side, that would be perhaps sort of a little broader labels like personal document, team documents, shared documents. But on the right side, you will find labels that I'm sure you recognize, policies and procedure, handbooks and instructions, or reporting documents and records. So what we then can see when we have done further analysis here is that the document types within each category here will have similar requirements. So on the left side of the model, you will find documents that will have very limited requirements, perhaps requirements regarding templates or the use of local properties. But on the right side, we can make a long list of requirements that you might have. So that might also then be templates and properties, but also then various workflows and document history, traceability, archiving, and so forth. So this model can then also be used to structure where documents should go in a SharePoint or Microsoft 365 environment. So on the left side, that might be OneDrive, there might be team sites, and that might be, if you are using communities, also that documents end up there. On the right side, we can say that these documents will go into SharePoint. So that is sort of a higher level description, of course, but in this case, then also supported by our own product, Omnia. And this is the area that we will be talking about today, the SharePoint and Omnia solution for controlled documents. So these are important documents that you as an organization want to have. You want to know what happens to these documents over their life cycle. Right, so let's move into the solution scenarios then. And we will talk about, as I said, 4 different scenarios. So first of all, now we will be solution owners. So this might not be just one person, it might be a function, but what we're doing now is sort of structuring our solution and creating sort of the policies and the rules and the governance that we want to have for our document management solution. So first of all, I would say that we already, when we had a look at the information model, we talked briefly about defining document types. So in this slide, you can see a number of categories or a number of dimensions regarding documents that you might want to be talking about when doing this analysis. So that might be then how should approval be done? What rules do we have for archiving? Do we have a need for encryption? How should appendices be handled and so forth? So when you have done this step, you will probably then arrive at sort of having a number of document types that might be 4 or 8 or 12 or 15 or whatever your need is, but it will look something like this then. So you will have the document types, you will have specified requirements regarding each type. That will also include document templates and the structure for properties on these documents. And also then you will have defined this controlled life cycle. So from when a document is created and perhaps over a number of workflows, it will be published and used by your colleagues. and then at some point it might be archived, and at some point it might be terminated. So this life cycle is of course an example, but you get the drift. So as solution owners, we have now created this as the platform for our solution. So then we are ready to go. And let's now be administrators, because what we want to do now is, of course, then implementing all that we have decided as solution owners. So let's move into the Omnia administration portal, and we are now setting up the document management solution and the rules for our controlled documents. So here you can see that we have something called document types. So the document types we have just as solution owners defined. So we can now go into, as an example here, work instruction, and say that using these 5 tabs here, we can now, as administrators, decide on properties, or in this case, property sets, which is a group of properties, or we can define what document templates are applicable for this document type, or we can decide on how to use appendices. We can also then look at the other tabs here. So you can see we can, in the first tab here, as an example, we can structure the publishing or approval workflow. We can set out at what period, what interval should a new review be done of this document. We can set out archiving rules and retention rules if we need that. And then when we have done this as an administrator, we are pretty much sort of good to go regarding the document types. But worth to mention here as well is then the properties. So I said just as a comment before that we were working with property sets. So here we are looking at that. So as you can see, we have a number of property sets here. A number of property sets also then for documents, and for each of the property sets we can define what properties should be available for one or several document types. So this means that we have also then support for a structured management of enterprise properties that could go on documents. And the same goes for document templates that we also then can create some categories for. We can upload or create the document templates and use those in the system, and also then secure a centralized management of the document templates. So we are now then done as administrators. So we, as administrator, we have taken the rules defined by the solution owners, and we have implemented that as a foundation. So let's now move over to authors, those people that actually create and manage the control documents over their life cycle. So first of all then, what authors now need to follow is that when they create a document of a certain document type, they will inherit all the rules implemented by the administrators, and they will have to follow the defined life cycle. So first of all then, we come into the solution here as authors, and in this case I will be creating a document, and that is made in a team site. So I will navigate to the team site in question. In this case, we are working in a department called product development. So in our team site here, product development, you can see that we have the possibility to work with controlled documents. So the team site for product development for our department, that site could of course be used for any collaboration that we have need for, but we also then will let a number of people work with controlled documents. So what we can sort of emphasize here as well is that the same scenario that we are into now can also be managed and carried out in Microsoft Teams. So as you can see, we are in the product development team and we are here working with control documents. So you can choose yourself, or your authors, your end users can choose if they want to work with the documents in Microsoft Teams or in SharePoint. So we will be in this scenario working in SharePoint. So here you can see I'm creating a new document. And since we probably have a number of document types, we present here a simple wizard for the authors to choose a certain document type. So in this case, let's choose work instruction. And in the next step here, you can see that, okay, I can choose a template. I have to post some properties on the document, and then I can create it. So when we have created the document, it will of course be based on the template that we have chosen. So here you can see that I've started to write some content, but you can also see the document header. And in this case, you see that the document header only has sort of tokens. Here, the properties of this document will be implemented, but of course then done by the system, done by the document management solution as we go along. So now we have created this document here called Envisioning Guidelines. And as you can see, we are in the Drafts tab of the solution. So here we create documents, and here we work with any draft documents. But now, when we have worked with the document for a couple of days, let's say, it's time for us to use some of the workflows available here. So as you can see here, we have a workflow that is called Send for Comments, and we have a workflow that is called Publish. So the Publish workflow will be used for publishing and approval of the document. But let's start with the Send for Comments document. So now I think the document is pretty much good to go, but I want to get some feedback from colleagues. So here we are inviting 2 colleagues to give feedback on this document. And since this is done using a workflow, this will be a structured process that can be traced afterwards. So when I get the feedback, I might do some adjustments in the document, and then when I'm ready, it's time to publish. So the publishing workflow will of course be carried out in accordance to what administrators already have set up in the solution. So here you can see that we have a set approver or approvers to choose between. We have the possibility in this case to convert the document to PDF. We can notify people. So if I want to notify anyone in marketing when this document is published, I can do that. And I can also require a read receipt from those people. So when I click send here, the document workflow will start. The people involved will get a task and when they have carried out that task and the document is approved, the document will be available for our colleagues, and it will be available in our site in the published tab. So the drafts tab contains all documents that we are working on right now, and the published tab shows all documents that we have already gotten an approval of. So also here you can see that we have a menu on each document. So here on the document that we created now, we can have a look at the document card and all the properties. We can also check read receipts. So as you can see here, I'm following up on the read receipt status. And if we get feedback from end users, I can check that here as well. Here through that menu, we also can have a look at the document history. So here we have the editions of this document, and I also have a possibility here to check the workflow history. So here is the send for comments workflow with comments and who was involved. And here is the publishing approval workflow, who was involved in that and what comments were made along the way. So as you can see here, the traceability will be very good for the document. So now then, when we have this published document, it is available here for us. We can, of course, take part of the document here, so we can open it and read it. And it is also available for end users, but end users will not be forced to go to this site to take part of the document. Instead, the document will be published in a context that makes sense for end users. So in this case, you can see that we are looking at a process here and an activity within the process called envisioning. And as you can see here on that page, the document that we just created is available. So we have now secured a structured approach for authors, so easy to manage those important documents over their life cycle, but also then an easy to use solution for end users and finding documents in a context that makes sense for end users. So having said that, let's move over to look at the end user perspective. So we said before that the authors will be following the life cycle, the process that we have implemented into the solution, and that this might of course be different for various document types. But end users, as I said, will be taking part of the documents in various places and in various contexts that make sense for end users. So that might be a process page, that might be a project center, that might be a product page, and so forth. So when we have created a document and we have gotten that approval, we can also then say that we want to sort of that document should be available for end users in those various contexts. So let's look at some examples here. So first of all, let's look at what we can call a document center and also the search function. And in this case, the scenario is in Microsoft Teams. So this is an end user in the same organization, the demo organization that we have been using, accessing the document center that we now have made available in Teams. So the document center in this case is actually displaying all controlled documents. So that could be a corporate policy, that could be a work instruction, that could be a product manual. So a document center, it is not necessarily a very common part of a document management solution, perhaps. But it's a good way to show the logic in the solution, because now we are looking at all controlled documents. So here we can use search features, but also then the properties of these documents to filter out and to make it easy to find documents. So when I click here that I only want to see product manuals, we will have a lower number, of course, of documents showing. And when I click that I only want documents to show that has a certain owner, then we will have an even smaller range of results here. So what we then can do is take the same logic that I showed you now and implement that in sort of on various pages, but then using these properties to sort of just show the right documents in the right context. Also then in the Teams environment, we have here implemented the intranet search feature. So this is a search feature in Teams that will allow the end user to search the intranet for any content. So that could be then, we have here search for sales, and we are now looking at the people scope, the people search category. But as you can see here, we also have a search category called published documents, or that could be called control documents, or whatever you want. And as you can see, also here, we can use the refiners. So that could then be sort of narrowing down, just showing published documents, just showing work instructions, and I could here then click to sort of see just work instructions owned by a certain person. Now, when it comes to the refiners here, these refiners are of course your properties. So these all of these properties will make sense for you and for your colleagues. So there's the example. Right. So a couple of other scenarios. Let's say we are now working to create product related documents. So as an author, we would create a document, and in this case you can see we have some further properties here, pretty specified regarding what product this document is about. We publish the document just as you saw, and now the document is available. So when we come into the solution as an end user, we will go to the product page, in this case regarding a bike model. So here you can see that we have this overview, we have some media here to download or look at, but we also have a tab for marketing material belonging to this product or technical documentation. So the document that we just published before here was this one, Cruising Service Handbook. So this document that we published as an author is now available on the product page and in a certain tab here. So as an end user, we actually also here have the possibility to give feedback on the document. So using this icon here, I can provide feedback that will then be sent to the document owner. Let's do the same with process documents. So you saw before we published this document to a certain process. So from the end user perspective, that might look something like this. As an end user, I arrive at a process page, and in this case, it's the company main process. So I can use this for navigation and go down into product development here, develop products. I can go one step further into the process that we actually looked at before, and we can go into the envisioning activity here, and then this was actually the slide that I showed you before. You see the document here. So worth mentioning here is also then that it's possible for us to share the document card containing then all properties, and also showing the document history if we want to share that then with the end users. When it comes to project documents, the case and the scenario might be somewhat different. I mean, when you arrive at your intranet or at your collaboration platform, so to say, in this case, we have this navigation here, and we are going into the project Avalon. So this is of course available in Teams, but in this case we are looking at the scenario from SharePoint. So this is project Avalon, and here we have a document library, and you can see that we, using Omnia, have implemented the possibility to provide document templates here. So in this project, we are now going to publish a report. So we have this steering group meeting in a couple of days or weeks, and we want to create this Tollgate 3 business report. So that is the document that we are creating in our context. But then we can say that when we have created this document, we want to have this also shared outside the project group, because in this site only the project group have access. So then we can publish this and we can make it available for the steering group, or we can make it available for any colleague. So that could be, of course, one scenario could be just sharing it with the steering committee, but another scenario could be that in projects we have a number of important documents that we want to share with everyone. So we are doing that in this case. So when another end user come into the solution, goes to our project center, they can see all our projects. So they can see the ongoing projects, they can see the archived or completed projects, but they also have a possibility here to find a project document. So let's say now that another end user is about to do this sort of business report for Tollgate 3, but for another project. So maybe they want to go in here and try to find documents that someone else has created. So in this case, we are searching for sales because we want to have a report that is regarding sales. And as you can see here, we can then use the filters and say, I only want to see project reports, and I only want to see project reports regarding product development. And then we can actually see that the document that we just published here from our project is available here as well. And of course, we can take part of that document here. So let's do one more example. Office documents. So this, I mean, the types of documents that we're talking about here are, as I of course, just sort of scenarios or examples. But in this case, we have an office in Gothenburg, and we're doing this scenario in Teams. So within the Gothenburg office, we would like to, on the page on our intranet that is about this location, we want to publish information, and some of that information is in documents. So in this case, you can see that we are producing a document with information about the airport in Gothenburg. So we are in the drafts tab, we are working with this document, and it's time to publish it. So we do that according to the rules that has been set up. And when the document is published, it's now available for end users. So in this case also then, end users access this information in the Teams client. So here we are looking at our locations. You can see the Gothenburg location here. And when I click that, we come into the Gothenburg page. We have some information here on our office. We can see information on who is working here, but we can also see documents that has been published in the Gothenburg context. So whenever it's time to travel to Gothenburg to visit our office there, you can find the airport information here. And of course, also here we can share the document card and the document history. So what we have looked at now from sort of the combined author and end user perspective, we have seen a number of examples where we are in a project, in a department, in the product management team, in the office location here. We have created documents, all then with sort of applied rules, and we have published these documents to various pages or contexts on our intranet. So we have structure when it comes to handling the document, and we have a user friendliness when it comes to accessing documents within this our intranet context. And of course, besides sort of publishing documents to a certain page, as you saw regarding the document center and also the search function, we of course have availability of all documents. So just to finish this section of the webinar off, then let's move back briefly to the solution owners and administrators. So Also then, besides setting out the rules for the solution, we also need to keep track on some statistics. So one overview here could be then to sort of, I want to monitor all control documents within our tenant. So then you would have this overview where you could see documents waiting for approval, how many documents are published, how many are archived and so forth. And you could also sort of click on the numbers here to drill down and see where are these documents actually located. So we can then also track who has access to working with these documents if we want to do that, because this is then the context where the documents can be found. We can also track a report here with expired reviews. So the expired reviews would then be documents that are past review dates. In this case, then 2 documents. So for me as an administrator, that might trigger me to sort of contact people or tell people to, you better have a look at those expired reviews. And lastly, if we have the need for updating a lot of documents, we can do bulk updates. So in this case, this person here is leaving the organization. So I've searched for any document that he is a document owner of. I can mark documents and I can replace this person, the document owner, with a new value here. So bulk updates will be available as well. So a short summary here. I think that main takeaways is that a good recommendation, I think, is to start working with the information model to build your strategy or document plan. Then move on to sort of implementing all policies and rules into the solution. And of course, then making sure, just as I've showed you, hopefully, that we can create a solution that will make sense for document owners, for administrators, for authors, and for end users.